Has it ever crossed your mind why Amish watermelons retain their sweetness for as long as 3 months post-harvest, whereas other varieties go bad in merely a week? Their long-established cultivation practices yield watermelons with double the sweetness of those typically available in retail outlets. And this is achieved without resorting to chemical substances or sophisticated modern technology. In this discussion, I will unveil 25 distinct Amish agricultural techniques that are worth knowing. The spoon test. The Amish have refined a straightforward yet potent system for choosing the finest watermelon seeds, utilizing nothing more than a wooden spoon. By positioning seeds on the spoon and noting which ones possess the greatest weight, they pinpoint the most promising candidates. These more substantial seeds pack more nutrients and yield seedlings that are noticeably more robust. What I find captivating is the direct link between a seed's weight and the ultimate sugar content of the fruit. When carrying out the spoon test, Amish farmers carefully deposit a small quantity of dried seeds onto a wooden spoon and give it a slight tap. The heaviest seeds remain in the center, while the lighter ones move towards the sides. They painstakingly choose only the seeds from the very center for planting. This procedure is repeated numerous times to guarantee that only the absolute best seeds are planted in the soil. The scientific principle underpinning this method is perfectly logical. Heavier seeds hold more stored energy in the form of starches and proteins. These additional resources provide the seedling with a more vigorous beginning, fostering more substantial root systems even before they penetrate the soil surface. The plants that result demonstrate enhanced vitality throughout their entire growth cycle. As my uncle often remarked, dedicate enough time to weighing watermelon seeds and your family will eventually have you institutionalized. Yet the outcomes are undeniable. Melons grown from heavy seeds consistently show higher Brix readings, greater sugar content, and superior texture. Some Amish cultivators have taken this technique a step further by employing specialized wooden spoons crafted with slight depressions that more effectively sort seeds by weight. As we will observe in the subsequent section, appropriate seed selection is merely the initial phase of the Amish strategy for exceptional watermelon cultivation. Maple water soaking. A distinctive Amish custom includes soaking watermelon seeds in diluted maple sap prior to planting. This is not merely a matter of tradition. The natural sugars present in maple water offer an immediate energy supply that kick-starts germination. Seeds treated in this manner sprout up to 3 days more quickly than those soaked in ordinary water. To concoct this solution, Amish farmers gather maple sap during the early spring tapping period, diluting it to formulate a mild yet potent pre-planting soak. Seeds are generally submerged for 8 to 12 hours, enabling them to take in just enough nutrients without the danger of rotting. The trace minerals found in maple sap, such as zinc, manganese, and calcium, fortify the emerging seedlings and enhance their resilience against common ailments. This method proves particularly effective with the dense, high-caliber seeds chosen via the spoon test. The synergy of superior genetics and boosted germination establishes an impressive groundwork for healthy plants. Certain Amish gardeners assert that one can visibly discern the difference in seedling vigor within mere days of their emergence. I discovered that store-purchased maple syrup, when diluted with water at a ratio of roughly 1 teaspoon per quart, can suffice in a difficult situation, although nothing surpasses the authentic article. As the old Amish adage states, the farmer who immerses his seeds in maple water will enjoy melons before his neighbor even sees vines. For individuals lacking access to maple products, honey can act as an alternative, though the particular minerals in maple sap render it uniquely potent. This uncomplicated soaking procedure aligns perfectly with the meticulous seed selection practices we have previously discussed. 7th-generation seeds. Amish farmers undertake seed selection with extraordinary foresight, selecting just one flawless watermelon from each harvest specifically for obtaining seeds. This 7th-generation perspective means they are perpetually considering the improvement of their plant stock for their future descendants. Interestingly, the prime seed melon is not invariably the sweetest or the largest, but instead the one that exhibits ideal growth traits, resistance to disease, and a suitable ripening duration. The selection procedure is systematic and deliberate. They scrutinize each plant throughout the growing period, taking note of which vines naturally repel pests, which yield fruit earliest, and which sustain vigor even when subjected to stress. Only melons from these outstanding plants are considered for seed preservation. When assessing potential seed melons, Amish growers look further than taste alone. They inspect the rind's thickness, which influences storage capability. Seed quantity is also a factor. Fewer seeds often indicate superior genetics, and even the sound the melon produces when tapped, which suggests perfect internal structure, is considered. Once chosen, the special melon is harvested at its peak ripeness and designated solely for seed gathering. Seeds are carefully removed, washed to eliminate all pulp, which can host bacteria, and dried extensively on cloth or paper. They are subsequently stored in breathable containers in cool, dry environments, frequently passed down through generations, accompanied by detailed records of their ancestry and growth characteristics. As my grandfather was fond of saying, these aren't merely seeds in this container. They represent your great-grandchildren's supper. This patient method for seed enhancement results in watermelon varieties that are perfectly suited to local cultivation conditions. The winter pit preparation technique, which we will delve into next, complements these carefully chosen seeds. Winter pits. When autumn leaves start their descent to the earth, Amish farmers are already contemplating the watermelons for the upcoming year. They excavate special pits, roughly 2 feet deep and 3 feet wide, in the location planned for their watermelon patch. These are not simply vacant holes, they transform into nature's slow-cooking vessels for ideal soil. The pits are filled with a meticulously layered combination: fallen leaves at the base, then vegetable remnants, a scant layer of manure, and finally more leaves on top. This concoction remains undisturbed throughout the winter as nature performs its wonders. The cycles of freezing and thawing decompose these materials, fashioning a rich, nutrient-abundant setting that watermelon roots will thoroughly appreciate. What renders this method so potent is the gradual decomposition. By springtime, these pits have evolved into perfect cultivation spots, already equipped with optimal drainage and nutrition. In contrast to commercial fertilizers that provide a rapid surge of nutrients, these winter pits dispense their benefits slowly over the entire growing season. One Amish farmer jested, "We plant in winter so we can avoid sweating in summer." There is a measure of truth in that. This preparatory work considerably lessens the effort required during the hectic growing period. I never subscribed to planning so far in advance until I attempted this method myself. After readying winter pits, my watermelons flourished vigorously. Without the mid-season fertilizing, I had always found challenging. The plants also seem more resistant to drought and disease. The essential point is, while most gardeners are stowing their tools for the winter, the most accomplished watermelon cultivators are digging pits and preparing for the following year's sweet harvest. The sole product our channel will ever endorse is a publication by Claude Davis, an experienced prepper, detailing 126 superfoods and conservation techniques from critical periods such as the Great Depression and wartime, information not readily available from other sources. Our choice to endorse this book stems from the belief that we represent the final generation capable of passing these methods and knowledge of superfoods to our offspring or their children. It would be regrettable if this knowledge concerning exceptionally nutritious foods and survival-focused preservation strategies were to vanish. Additionally, a book on herbal treatments by Nicole is available in their store. For those viewing on television, you can search for our channel, Frugal Solutions, using your mobile phone or tablet and locate the books via the link provided in our channel's description or the description of any other video. Special Biochar. Amish watermelon cultivators have utilized a particular kind of biochar for generations, long before it gained popularity in contemporary gardening communities. Their technique transforms common wood into a soil enhancer specifically designed for watermelons. The procedure commences with hardwood branches, typically oak or maple, which are burned gradually in a fire deprived of oxygen. However, this is where it becomes intriguing. They extinguish the heated charcoal not with water, but with a distinctive blend of watermelon juice and vinegar. This unconventional step imbues the biochar with micronutrients that watermelon plants particularly require. Once readied, this black gold is broken into pea-sized fragments and mixed into the soil several weeks prior to planting. As the biochar rests in the earth, it evolves into a microscopic habitat for beneficial bacteria and fungi that promote plant development. The statistics are compelling. This biochar can stay active in the soil for more than 100 years, enhancing soil composition and water retention with each subsequent year. A single handful of correctly prepared biochar can offer a living environment for billions of advantageous microorganisms. My grandfather often stated, "Good soil is like a good marriage." It requires carbon commitment, as one Amish farmer laughingly remarked, and committed it truly is. Research indicates that biochar can retain up to 6 times its own weight in water, releasing it gradually during arid spells. The most feasible adaptation for home gardeners involves using a metal drum to produce small quantities of biochar. Merely drill openings in the base, load it with hardwood, ignite it from the top, and allow it to burn down slowly. The resultant charcoal, once quenched and crushed, performs miracles for watermelon patches. Unlike commercial fertilizers that are washed away by rain, this biochar becomes a lasting soil enhancement, a boon to your garden that continues to provide for generations. Fish and egg boost. The key to exceptionally sweet watermelons might just be found swimming in your nearby creek or residing in your refrigerator. Amish farmers have refined a natural fertilizing method employing fish remnants and eggshells that commercial cultivators cannot easily replicate. When readying watermelon mounds, they excavate a small depression about 8 inches deep in the middle. Into this depression goes a curious blend: a small fish or fish heads, crushed eggshells, and a dash of bone meal. This is then covered with approximately 4 inches of soil before the seeds are sown. As these substances decompose, they steadily release calcium, phosphorus, and nitrogen, precisely what watermelon plants require for robust growth and the development of sweet fruit. The decomposition occurs gradually, supplying nutrients throughout the entire growing season instead of all at once. What I find remarkable about this technique is its exactness. The fish and eggs are not merely scattered haphazardly. They are placed precisely where the deepest roots will extend, establishing a nutrient-rich zone that encourages roots to grow strong and deep. The Amish employ what they term the smell test to determine when these materials have decomposed sufficiently for planting over them. If a fishy scent is still detectable, it requires more time. Nature's internal clock is more dependable than any calendar. My watermelons used to have a watery taste until I began using fish, one farmer informed me. Now they taste like candy. For individuals without ready access to fresh fish, even canned sardines can serve as a substitute in a pinch. Just ensure they are buried deep enough to prevent neighborhood animals from unearthing them. The eggshell should be finely crushed to release their calcium rapidly. This technique is not only effective, but also sustainable, utilizing materials that might otherwise be discarded to cultivate the sweetest watermelons you will ever savor. Perfect mounds. Dismiss what you believe you understand about planting watermelons in common hills. The Amish have refined a mound system with particular dimensions that will revolutionize your watermelon patch. These are not the tall, pointed hills that most gardeners fashion. Instead, Amish watermelon mounds are broad, flat-top plateaus, generally 3 feet in width, but merely 4 to 6 inches in height. This distinctive shape fulfills several functions that directly influence yield and flavor. The wide, flat surface captures and holds more rainwater than pointed hills, thereby lessening the requirement for additional watering. The slight elevation enhances drainage while ensuring roots remain adequately moist. Most crucially, however, this configuration establishes the ideal soil temperature variation that watermelons favor. During summer days, these mounds heat up swiftly, promoting vigorous growth. At night, they cool more rapidly than the surrounding soil, generating a temperature cycle that prompts the plant to store sugars in the fruit. This daily fluctuation in temperature is a key factor in cultivating exceptionally sweet watermelons. I had cultivated watermelons for years with reasonable success until an elderly Amish farmer visited my garden. He glanced at my tall, peaked hills and simply shook his head. "Too pointed," he observed. "Watermelons prefer dance floors, not mountain summits." After I reconstructed my mounds according to his specifications, my yield nearly doubled and the flavor improved significantly. The soil makeup of these mounds is also important. The Amish incorporate well-rotted compost, a small amount of sand for drainage, and the special biochar mentioned previously. This combination produces the perfect growing medium that retains moisture without becoming overly saturated. Good watermelon mounds ought to be shaped like a quality hat, broad enough to shield your neck from the sun, as one farmer expressed it. This is sound counsel for growing the most succulent watermelons conceivable. Corn ash magic. If you stroll through an Amish watermelon patch in the early spring, you might observe something peculiar, a fine coating of gray powder on the soil. This is not mere dust or some fancy commercial additive. It is cornstalk ash, and it serves as their secret ingredient for preparing ideal watermelon seed beds. Following the harvest, Amish farmers gather and dry corn stalks throughout the winter. When spring arrives, they burn these stalks and meticulously collect the ash that results. This ash is then sprinkled directly onto the soil where watermelon seeds are intended to be planted. The scientific basis for this custom is quite interesting. Cornstalk ash is rich in potassium and silica, two minerals that watermelons find particularly beneficial. Potassium fortifies the cell walls within the fruit, resulting in crisp, sweet flesh. Silica aids plants in naturally resisting pests and diseases. Furthermore, this ash subtly adjusts the soil pH to the slightly acidic level that watermelons favor. Commercial lime products often shift the soil too far towards alkalinity, but corn ash achieves the perfect balance. My grandfather used to remark, "Watermelons grown without corn ash are like pancakes lacking syrup. They'll satisfy your hunger but won't bring a smile to your face," one farmer related to me with a light laugh. If you don't cultivate corn, it's not an issue. You can often procure corn stalks from farm stands in the autumn, or even utilize the stalks from ornamental corn decorations once the season concludes. Just ensure they have not been treated with any chemicals. The application rate is straightforward, approximately 2 cups of ash per mound, lightly incorporated into the top inch of soil. It is best applied about a week before planting to allow it to integrate with the soil. This traditional practice highlights the cyclical philosophy of Amish farming. Nothing is wasted, and the remains of yesterday's crop become the fertilizer for tomorrow's. The outcome is watermelons with outstanding flavor and texture that modern commercial techniques simply cannot rival. Fourth sister planting. You have likely heard of the Three Sisters garden, corn, beans, and squash, cultivated in proximity. Amish farmers introduce watermelons as a fourth plant, and this combination proves remarkably effective. Here is the method. First, plant corn in clusters of 6 stalks. Once the corn reaches knee height, plant beans around each corn cluster. 2 weeks thereafter, place squash seeds between the corn clusters. Finally, plant watermelon seeds along the outer peripheries. Each plant contributes to the well-being of the watermelons. Corn provides shade during hot afternoons. Beans introduce nitrogen into the soil, which watermelons appreciate. Squash leaves act as a ground cover, suppressing weeds and conserving moisture. Accurate timing is crucial. Planting watermelons too early will cause them to compete with the other plants for nutrients. Planting them too late will not allow sufficient time for full development. What is truly fascinating is that watermelons grown in this manner tend to taste sweeter than those cultivated independently. The plant's roots appear to assist one another beneath the soil in ways that scientists are still investigating. This method requires more initial planning, but it results in less labor later on as the plants mutually support each other. Clay pot system. Instead of relying on intricate watering setups, Amish cultivators employ a simple, ancient method that yields superior results. The buried clay pot technique reduces watering needs by 70% while delivering water to plants precisely when required. Take unglazed clay pots with their bottom drainage holes sealed and bury them near your watermelon plants. Water gradually permeates through the clay directly to the roots. The soil draws water only when it becomes dry, establishing perfect growing conditions with minimal effort. This consistent moisture level avoids the issues associated with alternating wet and dry periods, which frequently lead to watermelons splitting or developing a bland taste. Since water is delivered straight to the roots, less is lost through evaporation or by nourishing weeds. Setting it up is simple. Bury a 6 to 8 inch pot with its rim just above the soil surface, approximately 10 inches from where you intend to plant your seeds. Refill the pots every few days and cover them with a flat stone to minimize water evaporation. The system naturally adapts to weather conditions. During hot days, more water seeps out as the soil dries rapidly. On cooler days, water remains in the pot for a longer duration. Dew collection. The most delicious watermelons might rely on morning dew. Amish farmers construct elementary structures that capture this pure water, achieving remarkable outcomes for taste and sweetness. These collectors are merely angled boards positioned near the plants. As dew accumulates overnight, it flows down channels to the plant roots. The boards are placed on the western side of the plants to gather the maximum amount of dew as nighttime temperatures decrease. What makes dew so beneficial? Unlike tap or well water, it contains virtually no minerals or chemicals. This unadulterated water contributes to the growth of sweeter fruit. Basic experiments indicated that dew-watered melons were 15% sweeter. The collector itself is uncomplicated. A 3-foot square board tilted at an angle, with gutters along its lower edge, leading to pipes that guide the water to the plant roots. A single collector can assist in watering 2 to 3 plants. This method is most effective in locations where nighttime temperatures are significantly cooler than daytime temperatures. Even in drier regions, these collectors supplement regular watering with the purest form of water. For small gardens, even a segment of metal roofing can function as a collector. Simply ensure that the morning sun does not strike it too early, or the dew will evaporate before reaching your plants. 12. Wet-dry cycle. Most individuals believe watermelons require constant, steady watering, but Amish growers possess a different understanding. They adhere to a specific watering regimen that applies just enough stress to the plants to enhance the fruit's sweetness. The wet-dry method involves watering deeply, then allowing the soil to dry out considerably before the next watering. This approach mimics natural rainfall patterns and encourages plants to develop deeper root systems. Most significantly, however, mild water stress prompts the plant to convert starches into sugars, thereby greatly improving the taste of the melons. How can one determine when to water? Excavate about 3 inches deep near the main stem. If the soil feels slightly moist but crumbles easily between your fingers, it is time for a deep watering. If it clumps into a ball when squeezed, delay watering for another day or 2. When the fruits are developing, this cycle becomes exceedingly important. Allow the soil to dry until the plants appear slightly wilted in the afternoon. This condition triggers sugar production. Then, a thorough watering revives the plant while preserving those concentrated sugars. This method necessitates careful observation rather than relying on automatic timers. For home gardeners, the process is straightforward. Water deeply, then wait until the top 3 inches of soil have dried before watering again. During the final 2 weeks before harvest, reduce watering even further to maximize sweetness. The outcome is watermelons with ideal juiciness and an intense flavor that store-purchased melons cannot equal. Cucumber spray. Cucumber beetles, those yellow-striped insects that wreak havoc on watermelon plants, have found their nemesis in an astonishingly simple remedy that Amish farmers have employed for generations. They concoct a natural spray that deters these beetles more effectively than many commercial alternatives. The secret is found in fermented cucumber leaves. Amish growers gather leaves from their most robust cucumber plants, chop them finely, and steep them in water for 3 days. This process yields a potent liquid that cucumber beetles find utterly repulsive. The scientific principle behind this traditional remedy is quite interesting. The fermentation process liberates compounds that replicate cucumber plant distress signals, essentially communicating to beetles, danger is present here. Applying this spray necessitates precise timing for it to be effective. Optimal results are achieved by spraying in the early morning while dew is still on the plants, as this helps the solution adhere to plant surfaces. Most Amish farmers apply it on a weekly basis during the crucial early growth phase and following any rainfall that might have washed off the previous application. What I find most impressive is the specificity of this remedy. Unlike chemical pesticides that eliminate beneficial insects along with pests, this spray primarily targets cucumber beetles while leaving pollinators and predatory insects unharmed. My father often said, "Combating bugs with plants is akin to fighting fire with fire, only you don't end up burning down your house," one farmer elucidated with a chuckle. The recipe is elementary: 4 cups of chopped cucumber leaves steeped in 1 gallon of water for 3 days, then strained using cheesecloth. Some farmers incorporate a tablespoon of mild dish soap to aid its adherence to plant leaves. This solution remains viable in a cool, dark location for up to 2 weeks before its effectiveness diminishes. This approach epitomizes the Amish philosophy of collaborating with nature rather than opposing it. By utilizing the very plants that pests target to fashion a defense, they preserve the natural equilibrium of their gardens while cultivating healthier, more resilient watermelons. Sunflower guards. If you stroll through an Amish watermelon patch, you will observe tall sunflowers standing like guardians around its edges. These are not merely for aesthetic appeal. They constitute a vital component of a sophisticated pest management system that safeguards watermelons without resorting to chemicals. Sunflowers function as trap crops, luring potentially harmful insects away from the prized watermelon plants. Numerous pests, including aphids and cucumber beetles, actually show a preference for sunflowers over watermelons. By strategically positioning these towering yellow plants, Amish farmers establish a living barrier that intercepts pests before they can reach the primary crop. The connection between these plants extends beyond pest control. Sunflowers draw in a multitude of beneficial insects, especially pollinators, which aid in the fruit set of watermelon flowers. The tall stalks also provide partial afternoon shade, shielding watermelons from intense summer heat, which contributes to the development of sweeter fruit. Placement is of utmost importance. Sunflowers are generally planted on the western and southern sides of watermelon patches, where they will cast shade on the melons during the hottest segment of the day. Spacing them approximately 6 feet apart forms an effective shield without obstructing essential morning sunlight. Sunflowers are like good neighbors, an Amish farmer related to me. They keep unwanted elements out and welcome helpful ones in. The most effective varieties for this role are the larger single-headed sunflowers rather than the branching types. Mammoth, Russian, and Titan varieties are particularly well suited, growing tall enough to offer shade while producing impressive flower heads that attract insects from significant distances. For home gardeners, adopting this technique requires some planning, as sunflowers should be started about 2 to 3 weeks before the watermelons to ensure they are well established when protection is required. The minimal additional effort yields substantial benefits in the form of reduced pest issues and enhanced watermelon quality. This natural protective system illustrates how traditional farming knowledge often offers potent solutions that modern agriculture has, at times, overlooked in its preference for chemical interventions. Cold dust barrier. A unique Amish method for safeguarding watermelon plants involves using coal dust to form a protective ring around them. This fine layer of coal dust deters crawling pests such as slugs and cutworms. The sharp particles irritate their soft bodies, and the dust draws oils from the insects, thereby disrupting their moisture balance. Unlike chemical pesticides, coal dust specifically targets pests and does not injure beneficial insects like pollinators. Farmers usually obtain coal dust from blacksmith workshops or hardware suppliers. Some even crush charcoal briquettes to create their own, although this is less effective than genuine coal dust. Proper application is crucial. The dust should be applied once the plants have developed their first true leaves, but before pest activity becomes intense. After a heavy rainfall, the dust barrier should be reapplied. Interestingly, as coal dust decomposes, it releases trace minerals that can aid plant growth, making it more advantageous than alternatives such as diatomaceous earth. Wood ash can serve as a substitute, though it necessitates more frequent reapplication. Violin treatment. One of the most delightful Amish customs is the violin treatment, wherein farmers play violin music for their watermelon patches. Although it might seem fanciful, scientific evidence suggests that plants do react to vibrations, and the particular frequencies produced by a violin may encourage growth and attract pollinators. Violin music is performed in the early morning, generally between 7 and 9 a.m., during vital growth phases such as flowering and fruit setting. The music consists of simple folk melodies, and each session typically lasts for 15 to 20 minutes, with the violinist moving through the patch. Research indicates that sound vibrations can affect plant growth, gene activity, and even the movement of nutrients. While I was initially unconvinced, I observed improved flowering and fruit set after implementing this technique in my own garden. Whether the benefits are attributable to the vibrations, increased pollinator presence, or simply the additional attention given, the violin treatment continues to be a cherished Amish tradition. Flower power. The colorful blossoms encircling Amish watermelon patches serve more than just an aesthetic purpose. They are strategic partners in yielding abundant harvests of sweet, luscious melons. These meticulously chosen flowers establish a robust pollination support network that commercial cultivators frequently disregard. Borage, nasturtiums, and zinnias constitute the core of this floral contingent. Borage, with its striking blue flowers, entices bumblebees, the most proficient watermelon pollinators. Nasturtiums attract beneficial predatory insects that prey on aphids and other pests. Zinnias draw butterflies and smaller bee species, thereby creating a varied pollinator community. The color combinations are extremely significant. Bees are particularly responsive to blue, yellow, and vibrant pink or red hues. This multifaceted color approach ensures that various pollinator species are drawn to your patch throughout the day. The effect on yields is quite substantial. Studies indicate that appropriate companion flower planting can boost watermelon yields by as much as 35%, achieved simply by enhancing pollination rates. Flowers are like small advertisements promoting free sustenance, one farmer explained. We merely ensure they are directing traffic towards our watermelons. Placement adheres to a distinct pattern. Flowers are planted in clusters of 3 to 5 plants, spaced uniformly around the watermelon patch, approximately 6 feet from the outermost vines. This arrangement is close enough to attract pollinators, but not so near that the flowers vie for nutrients. Even introducing just a single type of companion flower can yield a noticeable improvement. Begin with borage. Its star-shaped flowers attract the most effective pollinators, and its leaves are even edible, possessing a cucumber-like flavor. Afternoon shade. Contrary to the standard gardening advice that advocates for full sun exposure for watermelons, Amish growers have found that strategic afternoon shade actually yields sweeter, more flavorful fruits. This seemingly paradoxical method establishes the perfect equilibrium of sunlight necessary for optimal sugar development. Watermelons require plentiful morning sunlight. About 6 hours is optimal to fuel photosynthesis. However, during the intense heat of the afternoon, especially from 2 p.m. onwards, partial shade lessens plant stress and enables the fruit to concentrate sugars rather than merely expending energy to endure the heat. The temperature disparity between shaded and unshaded melons can be as much as 8 to 12 degrees, a difference substantial enough to significantly influence flavor development. Watermelons cultivated with ideal afternoon shade often exhibit higher sugar readings than their sun-exposed counterparts. Amish farmers provide this partial shade using elementary structures: lattice panels situated on the western side of watermelon patches, rows of tall, supportive crops like sunflowers or corn, or even temporary shade cloth affixed to wooden stakes. The objective is not to create complete shade, but rather a filtered light pattern that shields the melons from the most intense rays. "Consider watermelons akin to people at the beach," one farmer remarked. "A bit of sun imparts a healthy radiance, but excessive exposure leaves you scorched and uncomfortable." The timing of shade provision is also important. During the vegetative growth phase, more sun aids in developing robust plants. However, once fruits start to form, introducing afternoon shade assists in concentrating the flavor. For home gardeners, even a row of trellised vegetables on the western flank of your watermelon patch can generate this advantageous microclimate, potentially making the difference between good watermelons and truly outstanding ones. Single fruit focus. While commercial cultivators prioritize quantity, Amish watermelon farmers aim for impeccable quality by employing a single fruit focus. This strategy intentionally restricts each vine to nurturing just one exceptional watermelon, rather than several inferior ones. The technique commences once several small fruits have formed on each vine. Growers then choose the most promising fruit, typically the one that is most symmetrical and best situated on a robust section of the vine. All other developing fruits are culled, thereby channeling the plant's entire energy into cultivating one magnificent melon. Timing is paramount. The optimal moment for this selection occurs when the fruits are approximately the size of a tennis ball. Removing competing fruits before this stage might merely prompt the plant to produce additional flowers. Delaying too long means the plant has already expended energy on multiple fruits. The outcomes are quite striking. Single fruit vines generally yield watermelons that are 30 to 40% larger than those from multi-fruit vines, with noticeably higher sugar content and enhanced texture. Cultivating numerous watermelons on a single vine is comparable to raising too many children on one income, an Amish farmer elucidated. No one receives adequate attention. "I put this technique to the test and successfully grew a 42 lb watermelon of exceptional sweetness, far superior to the multiple smaller melons from my control plants. The single fruit melon possessed deeper red flesh and a more concentrated flavor." For home gardeners with restricted space, this approach is particularly sensible. Instead of several average watermelons, you can cultivate one extraordinary specimen within the same garden area, vine elevation. If you wander through an Amish watermelon patch late in the growing season, you might observe numerous fruits suspended above the ground on simple platforms. This traditional practice of elevating watermelons provides unexpected advantages that considerably enhance both yield and quality. While most gardeners allow watermelons to mature directly on the soil, Amish growers meticulously lift developing fruits onto elementary supports constructed from small wooden platforms, inverted bowls, or shaped beds of straw. This elevation establishes a space between the melon and the soil that fundamentally alters how the fruit develops. The benefits are numerous. Elevated fruits undergo more uniform ripening because air can circulate completely around the melon. The gap prevents direct contact with the soil, which can lead to rot or pest infestation. Perhaps most crucially, elevation lessens temperature variations compared to direct soil contact. Constructing support structures does not necessitate sophisticated materials. Many farmers employ simple wooden platforms roughly 6 inches square, slightly indented to cradle the developing fruit. Others fashion specialized straw nests, dense woven platforms that offer cushioning while permitting airflow. "Watermelons are like royalty," one farmer quipped. "They merit being raised off the ground where they can preside over the garden." Fruits should be elevated when they reach the size of a softball, large enough to remain stable, but before they become so heavy that they might injure the vines during repositioning. Each support must be placed carefully to avoid putting stress on the stem connection. For those cultivating watermelons vertically on trellises, specialized sling supports fashioned from pantyhose or netting offer the perfect cradle for heavy fruits. Root pruning. Stress is not invariably detrimental, particularly for watermelons. Amish farmers engage in controlled root pruning to induce just enough stress to significantly increase the sugar content in their fruits. This technique involves the careful severing of selected roots at particular stages of growth to activate the plant's survival mechanisms. Using a sharp spade, farmers drive the blade approximately 12 inches from the main stem, penetrating 6 inches deep, and make incisions on two sides of the plant. This action cuts some of the outer roots while leaving the central root system undisturbed. Timing is absolutely critical. Root pruning is most effective when the fruits are about halfway to full maturity. If done too early, growth will be stunted. If too late, the sugar-enhancing benefits will be missed. The ideal time is when the fruits have reached the size of a volleyball but still have several weeks of growth remaining. This managed stress compels the plant to enter a survival mode, initiating chemical changes that concentrate sugars in the developing fruit. This is analogous to how some vintners stress their vines to yield more complex flavors in grapes. Plants are much like people, one farmer informed me. A little adversity builds character. The pruning must be performed with discretion, never on more than two sides of the plant and never closer than 12 inches to the stem. Following the pruning, a thorough watering helps the plant recover while still preserving the beneficial stress response. For home gardeners, a common bread knife can serve as a substitute for a spade in smaller areas. Ensure clean cuts rather than tearing the roots, and water immediately afterward to lessen shock while maintaining the stress advantages. Straw test. Forget the practice of thumping watermelons. Amish farmers utilize a common broom straw to determine perfect ripeness with almost uncanny precision. This method surpasses the well-known thump test, which frequently yields unsatisfactory outcomes. The straw test operates on a straightforward principle. As watermelons mature, their rind becomes marginally more pliable. To conduct the test, farmers lay a clean, dry broom straw flat upon the melon surface, then gently apply pressure to the middle of the straw with one finger. If the straw bends considerably without snapping, the melon is not yet ripe. If it breaks cleanly in two, the melon is overripe. However, if it just barely fractures with slight pressure, the watermelon is perfectly ripe. The elegance of this test lies in its exactitude. While thumping necessitates years of practice to discern subtle variations in sound, the straw test offers unambiguous visual cues that anyone can comprehend instantly. My grandfather could identify a ripe watermelon from 10 feet away merely by sight, one farmer chuckled. The rest of us require the straw. For optimal results, employ a natural straw rather than one made of plastic or synthetic materials. The straw should be dry and relatively new, not brittle from age. Administer the test on the melon's underside, the part that was in contact with the ground, rather than the top, as this area typically ripens first. Home gardeners can employ this technique in conjunction with other ripeness indicators: the curling tendril nearest the fruit stem, a hollow resonance when thumped, and the yellow patch where the melon rests on the ground. Night tracking. The sweetest watermelons are contingent upon something most cultivators never take into account: nighttime temperature decreases. Amish farmers meticulously monitor this difference between daytime and nighttime temperatures to forecast harvest dates with remarkable precision. The underlying science is quite interesting. Significant drops in temperature at night, ideally 20 to 30 degrees below daytime highs, stimulate watermelon plants to convert starches into sugars, thereby dramatically enhancing flavor. These cool nights essentially signal to the plant that the seasons are shifting, prompting it to concentrate sweetness in its fruits. Experienced Amish growers maintain simple temperature records throughout the growing season. When they observe a pattern of 3 to 4 successive nights with appropriate temperature drops, they note on their calendars to harvest approximately 7 to 10 days later, precisely when sugar content reaches its peak. Watermelons are like skilled jazz musicians, one farmer remarked. They perform their finest work at night when no one is observing. For home gardeners, this implies paying close attention to weather forecasts in the weeks leading up to the anticipated harvest. A strategically timed harvest following several cool nights can distinguish between a good watermelon and an exceptionally sweet one. The ideal differential seems to be daytime temperatures ranging from 80 to 90 degrees, followed by nighttime temperatures in the 50 to 60 degree range. When these conditions endure for several days, it is nature's indication that perfect watermelon sweetness is developing. In areas lacking significant natural temperature fluctuations, some Amish growers even erect temporary shade structures over melons in the late afternoon to artificially induce temperature drops that trigger sugar production. Tendril reading. The key to ideal watermelon harvest timing might be concealed in plain view. Amish farmers have perfected the skill of tendril reading, employing the small, curling vine tendrils as nature's indicators of ripeness. Each watermelon possesses a corresponding tendril, the small, curly appendage on the vine where the fruit stem connects. As the melon matures, this tendril gradually transitions from a vibrant green to brown and dry. When the tendril is entirely brown, yet has not detached, the watermelon has achieved peak ripeness. The crucial aspect is to focus on the correct tendril. Many gardeners commit the significant error of examining random tendrils along the vine. Instead, one must identify the specific tendril attached at the exact same node as the watermelon stem. This particular tendril is directly linked to the melon's development and offers the most precise ripeness assessment. The tendril is the watermelon's little herald, one farmer explained. When it turns brown, it's essentially saying, "I'm prepared. Come and retrieve me." What makes this method especially valuable is its consistency across various varieties. While some watermelons develop yellow ground spots or exhibit changes in skin patterns upon ripening, these indicators vary considerably among varieties. However, tendril changes remain consistent across nearly all watermelon types. For optimal results, combine tendril reading with other indicators. The perfect harvest moment typically arrives when the tendril is brown, the ground spot is yellow or cream-colored, and the melon skin displays a slight dulling of its sheen. This natural timing system has guided Amish harvests for generations with remarkable dependability. Dewpoint timing. Have you ever observed how watermelons taste different based on when you harvest them? There is a scientific reason for this. Amish farmers gather their crop at particular dew points, not merely at any hour of the day. The ideal moment occurs when the morning dew is still apparent, but beginning to evaporate. At this opportune time, the fruit's sugars are perfectly concentrated. If harvested too early, the melon has not attained its peak sweetness. If too late, the intense sun begins to degrade those valuable sugars. You do not require sophisticated instruments to achieve this. Simply venture out to your patch barefoot. When the grass feels damp but not saturated, and the sun feels warm but not scorching, you have found the dew point sweet spot. I compared this method against midday harvesting last summer. The distinction was quite noticeable. Melons picked at the ideal dew point were demonstrably sweeter and remained fresh for nearly 8 days longer than their counterparts harvested in the afternoon. My grandfather used to say, "Watermelons are like adolescents," an old farmer once shared with me. They're at their sweetest when they've just emerged from bed, but haven't fully awakened yet. The finest aspect is that once you master this timing technique, you will never again experience the disappointment of biting into an underwhelming watermelon. With these 25 Amish watermelon cultivation secrets now at your disposal, you are prepared to grow sweeter, larger, and healthier watermelons, just like the seasoned practitioners of this craft. Take the knowledge you have gained, venture into your garden, and allow nature to compensate your endeavors.